Hi, Krista. Today I wanted to talk about some of the things that English doesn't do. Not so much words. We have lots of words in English. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are loads of linguistic lacunae, but English has a wide vocabulary. We got a lot of words compared to other languages, not even including all the technical words, because English is often a language of science internationally now, which is a huge benefit to all of us. But instead, I wanted to talk about some of the grammar things that English doesn't have. For example, English doesn't mark for gender. That doesn't mean we have no gender. Obviously, you have pronouns in your Tumblr blog description because we change our pronouns based on gender. And there are a few professional nouns, some of them falling out of favor, but that are gendered. And handsome and beautiful could be said to be kind of gendered adjectives, but by and large, gender has fallen out of grammatical significance in the English language. We don't modify our adjectives or our nouns based on gender, and we don't need to know the gender of nouns other than people. This has been an ongoing trend in English, moving away from the heavily gendered Anglo-Saxon to modern English, which barely has any genders at all. Anglo-Saxon had 3. It's possible that this trend could continue. I hear people talking about the singular they all the time, and he or she require us to conjugate for person, which we don't do in English, except with thou, and we know what happened to thou. Thou fell'st out of favor. Second, English doesn't have a formal register or honorific system. We do have a formal register, it's just not built in. In general, English is a very register-neutral language. Everybody is you, everyone is greeted with hello, we say please and thank you to everyone, or we don't say please and thank you, rude, but we don't modify the words please and thank you based on our relationship to the person to whom we are speaking, or the people we are speaking about. Whereas in Japanese or Korean, I need to know my status relationship with the person to whom I'm speaking, not just for practical reasons, but because I can't conjugate a verb, or I don't know what pronouns to use to refer to them. I don't know how to make language without first knowing my status relationship to the person who I'm speaking and the person I'm speaking about. In some African languages, there's such a difference in the dialect between how one speaks to friends and how one speaks to one's mother-in-law, for example, that they can almost be considered separate languages. They have distinct class systems, sort of like gender, and they have distinct vocabularies, different verb conjugations, a whole different system of communicating just based on the relationship of the people who are talking. English does mark for register to some degree, with ways of speaking in formal and informal situations, but generally those aren't changes to the grammar or structure of the language. And while it's good that we don't have a great deal of social distance built in, it's unfortunate that we don't have a way to indicate social closeness simply by how we speak. As with almost all register in English, it just relies on the word choice that we make. Of course, register, at least in English, is a huge source of comedy. There are hundreds of ways to get it wrong because it relies on word choice, so it's very easy to make oneself appear pompous or conceited or at least very silly. And finally, English does not mark for evidentiality. Now, in most of the languages that do mark for evidentiality, you can just elect to modify a verb ending to indicate that there's evidence for a statement, or leave the situation ambiguous as it always is in English. However, in some languages, almost all of which are critically endangered, evidentiality is built into the grammar, so one cannot make a statement without indicating clearly how one knows that statement to be true, whether one saw it firsthand or experienced it in some other way. Imagine how court cases would change if every time a witness spoke, everybody listening knew how the witness knew that information. Of course, people would still be able to lie, but people would be able to lie in subtle and complicated ways. And it's thoughts like that that got me sorted into Slytherin on Pottermore. Krista, I will see you tomorrow.